Good evening, everyone. Welcome to another round of sound. This is the #1 Cochran Sports Showdown. I'm Bob Pompeani. As always, we have a lot to talk about. We'll get into Mike Sullivan quickly being named new head coach of the New York Rangers and what the Penguins are to do. We'll talk about that, the Steelers, but the #1 topic tonight on the #1 Cochran Sports Showdown would be the continued meltdown of the local baseball team. And here to debate it is your panel tonight. We have Jason Mackey from the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette. In the middle, it's Brian Batko from the PG as well, and Andrew Fillipponi, PM Team 93.7 The Fan. So, Jason, this team, once again, lost today, didn't score any runs, had one yesterday. They can't hit. 12-23. At some point, something's got to give. When that happens, what does give? Is it just Derek Shelton? Is it the GM, Ben Cherington, and Shelton? Both? What's going to happen with this team, and when does it happen?
It's got to be both, Bob, and it should be now. I don't know why it hasn't happened by now. I don't know what we're doing here. I don't know how you can look at the Pirates right now and see some sort of spark. There's no spark. It is dead. Being over there, I've not been around a more depressed atmosphere. I don't see anything that's changing.
When you say depressed atmosphere, do you mean the crowd or do you mean the actual players are like
yes
depressed?
And yes.
That's really bad.
Well,
yeah,
that sounds
bad.
like they're not playing for their manager.
Because they lost 100 games in back-to-back seasons.
I know.
You covered those teams. You're saying this is worse than that?
Yes. Yes,
Seeing
because there wasn't that much hope. Not that there was a ton of hope right now, but they thought that they were going to be good, and the fact that they're not even close to it.
So they've thrown in the towel.
How can they think they were going to be good when they did nothing in this offseason to help their biggest problem, which was
they
hitting?
Convinced themselves and some other people. I'm one of them. I'm guilty. I'm wrong. Throw stuff at me all you want.
I don't have anything. I have a phone.
Do that. I don't care. I deserve it.
I mean, I guess that's irrational arrogance and confidence from a professional athlete. But yeah, I mean, it was. You seen some of the photos from this weekend, guys. I mean, not only was it Friday night where some weather played a factor in that, or maybe that was even last night, or both. I mean, yeah, weather's been a problem all week here, obviously, but just so few butts in the seats, and even a Paul Skeens day in the afternoon the other day. I mean, it seemed like there's not even that same energy for that. It is brutal right now, and to Jason's point, I wouldn't fault them for doing both at the same time. Both these guys have kind of been here in tandem from the beginning, but I would maybe try one switch up first, and that to me first would be Shelton. Try to get that new manager bump and see what happens.
How about if Ben Cherington decides to, for his own self-preservation, say to Bob Nutting, I'm going to fire him. I need your blessing. So that he separates himself from Derek Shelton. Would he do that? Should he do that? Or is Bob Nutting overseeing everything should say, no, I make the decisions and you're both gone?
The Ben Cherington we hear on his radio show doesn't think anything's wrong. He's that dog with the house on fire drinking a cup of coffee. That's what he is. Yeah, he thinks this is all part of his grand scheme of things where this was almost expected. It's bizarre the way he talks. It's not what fans want to hear. It's not what I want to hear.
You have to entertain the notion that he's at least saying that publicly, though, and maybe.
Do you agree? I think that's how he feels.
I think that's how he acts behind closed doors. Yeah, I do. I think that's how they operate.
He's in charge of this, so he's not going to say it's a mess, right? I mean,
well, yeah, and they're always talking about the process and playing the long game, and it's going to even out. And these are our projections. It's finally going to get to this point if you wait a little bit longer. And I think that's probably what Bob is being sold. If you're Bob, you have to look at this and say, I have 6 years of data that you have not delivered on what you've told me you were going to deliver on. Making good trades, developing guys, obtaining talent different ways. That's why I would get rid of both of them. They've had their on-field problems. The on-field tenor, the clubhouse, all of that stuff is not in a good place right now, guys, as I'm saying. But the roster is also nowhere near as deep as it should be for all of the high picks that Cherington has had, all of the trades that he's made to try to acquire talent. It has not been good enough.
Bob, they lost another game today where Brian Hayes, who has the long-term deal, gets picked off between second and third base, makes the last out of an inning there, and then doesn't cover the bag on a stolen base attempt. And he's supposed to be one of their headsiest, smartest, highest baseball IQ guys, which backs up what Jason's saying. When that guy seems to be out in outer space during a game where you've already lost two, you need to start winning games. To me, that's emblematic of where the team is at. And look, not having enough talent is one thing, but when you see it start to creep into the effort and mental effort, guys making mental mistakes over and over again, then I think you have to do something.
They've done that all year, though. Even Matt Gorski today going, I don't know who's decision that is
going back to
the
third
coach.
and then trying to score on a ball.
It went to Matty Machado. It's right there. He has to know better, or they should know better.
Well, they're seeding the run. He's playing back. As soon as the ball's hit, you break for home. But when you don't do that, then you got to shut it down.
Regardless, that doesn't make it any better for Shelton. I mean, that's just as bad of an indictment that they've been doing this all season. I mean, I even go back to the Kutch tweet that seemed to be expressing some frustration about the lineup decisions. And you guys know, I mean, one of the most uncomfortable things about this job is calling for other people's job, but at the same time, if you don't want to be under that microscope, you can go coach Division II or Division III baseball somewhere.
And if it wasn't year 6.
Yeah, and I just think, I mean, at this point, with everything Jason's saying about the vibe down there, and I mean, Shelton too, I mean, you hear him after these games, he sounds like he's at his wit's end. I would shake that up first and see if that does provide a jolt to anybody around there.
Bob, those guys got grace. Those guys got, I think, some patience from fans because they were sold on, okay, we're not going to try to fix this overnight. And the backbone of this team is supposed to be finding guys in the draft, and they traded established major leaguers for guys to come in and make them better. And most of those trades failed spectacularly. That's why both guys should be on the hook and should be gone.
You know, an interesting thing, last year this time, the Pirates needed a little buzz kick or something, and they brought up Paul Skeens. This year, they have another guy who could fit that bill. Is that something that would be on their minds right now in order to give people something to talk about other than the futures of the manager and the GM? And they have Bubba Chandler.
I'd like to say that their focus would be elsewhere, Bob, but I think at this point you look for anything and everything. I also think it's coincidental that Bubba Chandler's pitched really well at AAA, and it just lines up. Like, I don't think he has anything left to gain. So I fully expect him to start in the next week up here. I don't know when that's going to be, but I do believe he's going to be up here soon. And maybe that's the kick in the pants. The Pirates kind of turned it around, like you're saying, when Skeens was up here. Maybe Bubba Chandler does that. Carmen Majinski has not been good enough the second time through. I'd move him to the bullpen, drop Chandler in that spot. Do they respond? I don't know, because as I was saying, things are not great, but you never know.
Maybe let Bubba Chandler hit a little bit, too. He was a big football prospect coming out of Clemson. I think he could be the Steelers' fourth quarterback. He could be their camp arm while he's up here as well. Bubba Chandler.
Have him tackle Tommy Pham so they can't put him in the lineup. That's what I would ask him.
Well, Pham still
2 hits today, Pony.
But no home runs
What's he up
yet
to,
this year,
178?
right? No home runs from him, 1 from Brian Hayes. I mean, these are positions you need power. You have none of them right now. So there you go. And we'll see what they do. They have a trip to St. Louis. They come back home and take on the Braves. So the schedule won't get any easier, especially with the Braves coming into town. They have it figured out after starting 0-7. When we come back, we're going to talk about some hockey items, including Mike Sullivan leaving, and who does Kyle Dubas bring here to be the next Penguins head coach next. Well, it didn't take Mike Sullivan long to get a new head coaching job, just a matter of days. Let go or mutually agreed to leave here in Pittsburgh. He ends up with Chris Drury, who just got a new deal, so he brings in Mike Sullivan, and those two have an interesting connection. So first I'll start there. Jason, let's talk about just the decision, if it was mutual. I mean, Mike Sullivan, you know, the FSN, Fenway Sports Group wanted to make a change at some point, and Dubas kind of alluded to that. But Sullivan also was in a situation where he knew maybe he was getting frustrated. I think you were there. Yeah. You hear these guys talk, right? Mike Sullivan sounded frustrated as the year went on, like he couldn't control some of the things he's been preaching to his team. So it seemed like both needed a split, and they got one. Are you surprised it's New York so quickly?
No, I'm not. I'm not surprised that it's quick. I'm not surprised that it's New York, and I'm not surprised that the Penguins went this direction, Bob. I think Kyle Dubas is looking at this. He's finally getting a little bit more stroke in the organization, good, bad, or indifferent. I mean, this is his team. He's allowed to make this call. I don't think it was a mutual parting of the ways. I think Mike Sullivan wants to win right now. He wants to put his foot on the gas pedal, and I think there's an argument for that. I don't think Kyle Dubas is in that camp. I certainly understand the argument for maybe waiting and doing this the right way and targeting 26, 27. And I think it's a little bit of a philosophical difference where Mike Sullivan says, I want a team around me. I want to do this. And Kyle says, we need to back off a little bit. So I'm not surprised by any aspect of this, Bob. And honestly, given everything that I've heard that I know, I think it's the right move too.
Yeah, I think that's the fascinating balance about this situation, right? Is, you know, you've got this desire to win now. You've got the core that's still together for the most part, but how realistic is that? Dubas kind of, you know, I think we used the term ripping off the Band-Aid for Shelton in the first segment. I mean, he called it, and, you know, I'm kind of the wrong person to ask about whether it's Mike Sullivan, Mike Tomlin in this town when it comes to coaching stability. I've had the same job at the Post-Gazette for 12 years, been with my wife since we were 16. I don't change that much, but it does seem like it was time to shake this up for them, and I can't blame them. But the bigger question, and what'll be intriguing, of course, is how does it work for both sides here?
Yeah,
What
the
happens
expectations are very high. You have a quizzical look on your face.
Well,
Andrew.
I just don't. I'm very cynical about this whole thing. It sounds like you guys both think if Mike Sullivan wanted to continue coaching, he still would have been fired by the Penguins if he wanted to stay here. Because I don't believe that for a friggin' second.
No, I don't believe that.
Me neither. I think he wanted out, and I think that's why everything.
I think he wanted a different situation, and that situation wasn't possible here. So yes, he wanted out.
Yeah, and I think that's why everything came together, not only quickly but cleanly. You know, the GM had a 5-minute conversation with the best player in the sport. I think it happens that way if he's like, hey, you probably already knew this, but Mike is looking for something different. If Kyle Dubas calls Sidney Crosby and says, we're firing Mike Sullivan, something tells me that there's more back and forth there. I don't know. That's just, I feel like I'm going to say the North American insiders, because we include Canada, the way they cover the sport. I think the way the story's been covered has been very lacking, in my opinion. I don't think we have enough. I don't think we should have more information than we do, is what I'm going to say. Given the high-profile people involved, Dubas is a lightning rod up in Canada, and Sullivan's the greatest American hockey coach of all time. So.
Yeah, and it's pretty much over and done with, and moved on to the next chapter. Which
And you can't tell me
how fast this
that
all
when
went down.
Drury and Sullivan were together for the Four Nations that this plan was
This
not
goes
hatched.
long before then, too. But you're right, they were together. But he has a relationship with him that dates back to him as a
And
player.
knowing that friction could pop up throughout this season, I guess, with the lack of wins for the Penguins and, of course, Sullivan.
I think those guys.
These coaches don't last very long in that sport.
Let me add something on how this is being covered real quick, and then I'll let you get to your point, Pony. There's a reason why stuff isn't leaking out from the Sullivan camp. I can speak to that from personal experience in dealing with Mike. He's been
Well, I think maybe part of the reason, Bob, now looking back at it, why his message didn't get through is because I think if there were better jobs available last year, he would have left. And I think his players probably knew that.
Oh, interesting. Now there are 7 jobs available. They're all over the place, including here in
You
Pittsburgh.
think they hire Tocchet?
Well, that's going to be my next question. So you can, since that's I'll ask you first.
Yeah.
They have Tocchet to choose from. They have a bunch of retreads, guys who've been around and get jobs immediately. It looks like Tortorella's going to go to Sullivan in New York. What about a new guy? What about some young guy? What about somebody on another staff who hasn't had a chance?
So that would be my preference. But here's the compelling thing about Tocchet to me. People link him to Philadelphia. If he would be willing to take that job, why wouldn't he be willing to come here? I mean, that's what I don't get. I mean, that's not a overnight
Unless you look at their
turnaround thing.
roster, they have some pretty good young players, maybe more so than the Penguins have.
Well, then that's an indictment of the Penguins' situation.
It is.
That's how we
Would
feel.
you agree, though?
Yeah.
I mean, they don't have as many high-end prospects. I think Philly, because they've been so bad, have hit on some of them.
Now, I think they could go out and pay Tocchet. I don't think FSG is going to, pinch pennies when it comes to this hire. I don't think that's what Kyle Dubas wants.
I agree with that.
I think Kyle Dubas wants the Spencer Carberry here. I don't know if that becomes David Carl, the University of Denver, or whomever. I think he's going to
want a lot of play.
Yeah, I think he wants a guy who's been in the AHL, who has an opportunity. He's been close to development, been working with young players, who needs the opportunity to prove himself at the NHL. I don't think they go with a retread here, Bob.
So much of it, though, is about who is going to be best for Sid, and I guess, who can kind of thread that needle with what they currently have on the roster. Would it be, I think the retread label is right. I don't know if the Rangers consider Mike Sullivan a retread at this point. I think they're loving that they got him for the most part. But, Tocchet just seems like it makes the most sense, would provide some juice, again, for a franchise that kind of needs it after the way things
I don't
have been
think
going
that
the last
Kyle
few years.
agrees with what Brian just said. I don't think he's looking for the right coach for Sidney Crosby. I think he's already into 3-4 years down the road, and Sid will be a part of that plan, but I don't think it's about.
Yeah, I think that's the way
I
Dubas
do
is
worry how
operating.
that's going to play with Sid. And for what you're saying, Pony, and how much he's taking Sid's opinion. I think Sid is used to having his opinion heard.
So how much
in
say,
the
real quick,
organization.
should he have? How much say should Sidney Crosby have in this?
I don't think he should get to pick the coach, but I think he should have a pretty prominent voice, especially if he's going to stick this out. I mean, you're Sidney Crosby, right? I mean, he doesn't get to hand-pick him, but he gets some say-so.
Dubas really likes someone and Sidney doesn't.
Well, he's starting to feel like Will Smith in the Fresh Prince, where he looks around the room and there's an empty room with just an old carpet on the floor, or a rug. I mean, that's what it looks like. I mean, all the guys that were, because Malkin's going to leave after next year. Letang, I guess, will have his, the next 3 or 4. But I think you have to take his opinion into account, and then some.
Especially if he's going to ride this out and stay here.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. I mean, I understand impatience with, wanting to get the plan moving in the right direction, and you don't want to sacrifice for a short-term gain. But Sid's been here for so long. I think you do owe that to him. And even if 2 or 3 quote-unquote wasted years because you picked the wrong guy using his input. What are you really going to lose in the long run?
We got to take a break. When we come back, we're going to talk about some football topics that are interesting, including who of a list of quarterbacks I'm going to throw out to these guys will have the biggest career. We'll talk about that and more next on the number one Cochran Sports Showdown. All right, welcome back. We're talking about the Steelers, and they continue to wait for Aaron Rodgers. Andrew, you had something on your Twitter site this week, and I followed up and listened to a podcast of Ross Tucker, who's very involved in football, as you know, and he was sort of critical about the Steelers waiting and playing this game, saying that if Aaron Rodgers is just delaying this decision, it sounds like he may not even want to play. How dangerous is it, and do you think he'll end up playing here?
Well,
when will he make that announcement?
I think that's true even if he does sign. I think you have to wonder how committed he is to football. He might be there in body, but is he there in spirit and mind? And I think right now the guy's got a million different things going on, whether it's serious personal stuff. I mean, now there's this huge rumor that he got married. He's at the Kentucky Derby with a ring. Seriously.
I saw that.
That's out there. I mean,
but still, a yes or a no, you can. You don't have to be here for any of this.
So that's
just say
why
yes or no.
I thought Ross was right in terms of, too, like, even if you get Aaron Rodgers, what is the ceiling with him? Like, what is the end game with him? I think he was, I mean, what? You're more competitive in a playoff game? That's the best case scenario. And then you got to go back into the quarterback pool again next year. So I don't understand why he wouldn't have just said, I'll sign the contract, but let me sort through my personal stuff. And that might mean I miss voluntary exercises. And if he's got a good reason for it, why would they want to fight him on that?
Yeah, I was going to say he probably still feels some of the heat from doing that last year with the Jets. I know it was a different situation. He missed the mandatory mini camp to go to Egypt, which was pre-scheduled again. The part that I disagree with you on, Pony, about if he's here physically, he might not be all in. I actually think if he is here physically, that would tell me he is ready to learn these guys, get to know these guys, be personable with these guys. I just think a lot of this, if he does end up signing here, Bob, is he doesn't want to be here for the stuff that is in May and is optional. I mean, maybe he'll prove me wrong. He's got about 2 or 3 weeks to do so, but you always hear from retired guys, oh, it's not the Sundays I miss or the camaraderie, it's the meetings, the slog Monday through Saturday.
Isn't that a big part? Isn't that a big part of being a part of a new team?
It is.
And knowing your
But when you think you're, what was the old 1 in 52 kids? I mean, you don't want to go down that road again, but.
Yeah, I mean, you want somebody who wants to be here. If you're in the situation like the Steelers are in, I mean, they have to do something to break through a wall of mediocrity that has clouded their past couple of seasons. If I'm running this team, I want somebody who wants to be part of the solution. If that's Mason Rudolph, if that's Will Howard, if that's somebody else, I'll roll with those guys. If there's nuance here that we don't know about, that's different. And I understand what Pony's saying. If there are legitimate off-field concerns, if you want to sign the contract and take care of your concerns, by all means, I'm respecting his personal life. But it certainly seems like what we know, this guy isn't that interested in putting in the dirty work, the grind, that sort of thing. And the Steelers should want that.
Bob, the Ross Tucker point that was the best one for me was you're putting off finding your long-term solution at quarterback in the name of just seeing how many games you can win with Aaron Rodgers. I don't get that.
I don't know if they feel like they owe that to Cam Hayward and TJ Watt to some extent, if they think that.
But those guys like Mason, supposedly.
Yeah.
So
I would. That. I mean, that might. And Cam did not seem to like the dalliance with Aaron Rodgers. From the very beginning. He tried to walk that all the way back to Columbus. But
that's because I think those guys have been told he's going to be here, and we'll see if Aaron Rodgers comes through on his end of things.
Sean Elliott didn't walk his back.
No, they shook hands. They posed for a picture on social media. Yes, right. they did. So I mean, everybody will get with the program if it happens.
We have to take a quick break. When we come back, Shedeur Sanders, Will Howard, or Jackson Dart? Who plays first? Who plays better? Next. All right, 3 quarterbacks, Jackson Dart, Shedeur Sanders, and Will Howard. They were chosen in that order. Brian Batko, which one is going to get on the field more faster, and which one will have a better career?
I mean, I think Jackson Dart's probably got the clearest, quickest path to being on the field. We all saw Russell Wilson down the stretch last season. He's the pole position guy yet again for the Giants. Jameis Winston is in the mix, but I mean, Shedeur Sanders already getting all eyes on him in Cleveland, running hills in the neighborhood, visiting elementary schools. He's got somebody in his camp, his pseudo agent or whatever, is arguing with Browns reporters on Twitter. It's going to be a fun time there in Cleveland.
No mention of Will Howard, by the way, from the Steelers beat reporter.
Well, I don't think he's got a clearer path than Jackson Dart, that's for sure. And he's
Jason,
also
who's gonna have a
being
clear
more
path?
low-key.
I
He was
think
at
it's
the
Shedeur
Buckeyes game.
Sanderson. Pony, go ahead and laugh. I don't care. I look at who he's competing with.
Yeah, I agree.
I think he's a fifth-round pick in title. He should have been taken earlier. It wasn't because of his ability as a football player. I think he has a chance to win a job earlier because of the Russell Wilson, Jameis Winston situation in New York.
If Rodgers flakes out, though, okay, there's not. I mean,
that could happen.
I think it's
Mason
greater
Rudolph
than
could be.
0%. Then Howard is an injury to Mason Rudolph away from playing quarterback this season, no?
Or a camp competition with Mason Rudolph away. Who knows? They haven't exactly been
I think Mason has
eager
that
to
pole
put him in
position.
there over the years.
Yeah,
but
we'll see. All right, it's going to be interesting to watch all three of those guys, big names. We'll find out who gets on the field first. Meantime, just when car buyers could really use a lucky break, along comes employee pricing at #1 Cochran Ford. That's right, you get the same extraordinary discounts as if you worked in a Ford factory. And remember, these savings are on top of #1 Cochran's already reduced clear-cut pricing. Plus, you can choose from more than 700 new vehicles across their 5 Ford stores. Get your employee pricing at #1 Cochran Ford or Cochran.com. All right, we are done. I'm out of time and I'm getting giddy. It's late at night. Thank you for joining us here. Thank you to this trio of talent. Mackey, Batko, Fillipponi. We'll do it again next Sunday night right here, 11:35 for the #1 Cochran Sports Showdown. Hope you have a great week. Thank you for joining us.